Blog Talk Radio.
Hey there! Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Well, happy National Skip the Straw Day, everybody. It is February 2019, and welcome to Big Blend Radio's Quality of Life show. We're streaming live from a snowy, rainy Tucson, Arizona, and we're your hosts, Nancy and Lisa. We're the crazy mother-daughter travel team and publishers of the digital interactive Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, as well as National Parks, our National Park magazine, which is Parks and Travel magazine. Actually, not all national parks. Covers every park that we're going to on the Love Your Parks tour.
Awesome.
You see, this is all happening, everybody. So anyway, the magazines, you can go to BigBlendMagazines.com for both of those. But today, if we look at exactly a month from now, Nancy and I will be out of Tucson on our Love Your Parks officially. We're supposed to start in May 2019, but, you know, we wanted to move on the first day of spring because why not? And we're going to be heading to our tour headquarters in Yuma, Arizona, the historic Coronado Motor Hotel, doing some coverage out there. And then we hit the road full-time, going to document every single park in America that we possibly can. Doesn't mean we won't cross borders or hop over the pond to England or something. You never know, or Africa, or wherever we want to go. But it's about, you know, really taking a look at these spaces. All size parks are important, and I encourage you all. We've got a brand new website. I'm busy loading up all the parks we've been to so far in this country, which is over 100 on our tour since we started in 2012. So if you go to loveyourparkstour.com, you can check it out there. I've got a lot of parks to put up there.
Yep,
We're going to have a busy weekend. And also we have a new blog. Priscilla, our pink sock monkey, will be taking care of that because she's our mascot, and it's about time she did something worthwhile. So she's going to be taking care of our blog, so watch for some very interesting posts there. But today's show, we're super excited to have Adam Roberts back on. Many of you have heard him on our shows. He's been on our shows since the beginning, like 11 years now, 11 years.
It's been a really, really long time.
I know, and we've talked about, he's called from CITES conferences around the world. He's talked about wildlife conservation a lot on our shows. He's an expert in that. Also the environment. We've had shows talking about climate change. We've talked about being vegan. We've talked about ecotourism a lot, and now we're very excited to chat with him today about his new position. He's the executive director of Bethesda Green, and this is a very exciting nonprofit based in Bethesda, Maryland, that's really looking about how to be sustainable as a sustainable community. And we're looking at business, we're looking at the community, we're looking at schools, composting, all kinds of good stuff. So I encourage you to go to their website, BethesdaGreen.org. But Adam, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. I guess I'm a little warmer at the moment than you all are, but I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking.
Hey, this would be global warming, climate change possibly? Or what do you think?
I think so. Definitely climate change, and it's so erratic as to be frightening. There's no question about that.
I know, right? And now I do want to ask you, this is the most important thing. How does Pickle, your little doggie, like her new office?
She's great. She's getting used to it. She's got her bed and her blanket and her bowl of water, and is getting used to the new people. But she's standing guard of the new office, so she's great, and glad that she's
Cool.
with me still.
And I love Bethesda Green. I've been on their website and looking at. This seems like you're in this role of, and I know you're used to also working on in different nonprofits in regards to people. So you seem to be working now. It's people and the planet, businesses, communities, schools, all in one place to better the environment. So let's talk a little bit about Bethesda itself. So for those of us like Nancy and I, we've never been there. In fact, anywhere near D.C., we're going to need help because I'm scared of driving in D.C. But you're just outside D.C. from what I can see on the map. Give us like a little overview.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because Bethesda is this very cool community right over the D.C. line, so it's incredibly close to the city, right up the street from my home, and it's this community that's on the one hand rather embedded and historic, schools and businesses and a real sense of community. But on the other hand, it's also this thriving and growing community. So there's incredible opportunities to have a say in how that growth happens, right? Is it, moving into strip malls and sort of over planning, or are you doing it with a common sense purpose of green space and local community and that sense of wanting a vibrant green community that's sustainable? And I think that's where Bethesda Green comes in, suggesting that we can build strong communities that are also good for people, for the planet, and for the profitability of the businesses that are there. And Bethesda Green is really focused on that triple bottom line impact of people, profit, and planet. So we're making sure that Bethesda grows in the right way, but also that we have a model that can be replicable for other communities throughout Maryland, the DC region, and of course across the country.
Wow,
cool.
So this is something that we get excited about, because it's something we learned, going on the first leg of our tour. Remember, back in the day it was called Spirit of America, because we were looking at national parks being America's best idea. And we really quickly discovered that national forests are just as important. State parks are important because a lot of times they were budget issues that let's close the state parks down. So you're looking at nature, you're looking at quality of life for communities, you're looking at preserving history, geology, all these amazing things that parks do. And we started to realize, and through a lot of conversations with park ranger friends and conservation friends and community building friends, there's been so many reports saying that every park matters in regards to people need a park 15 minutes from their house. So urban parks are actually really important. And so it seems that we need to look at everything almost on a smaller size to be able to impact the bigger things, that we need to look just right outside our back door sometimes. I know that Nancy and I are going to be going to a lot of back doors on our tour here, but that's what we learned, is you have to look at every little square inch of land being important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly right. And, you mentioned sort of coming into D.C. before, right, and the sort of onerous view of driving around the city and whatnot. And it's really interesting because one of the things that I've always loved about D.C., and I've lived there for almost 30 years now, but the fact that it's got so much green space. And I actually live in a neighborhood right in the city called Glover Park. And Glover Park was a bird sanctuary 100 years ago, or when it was first set up, and some of that land was donated to the city so that they could use it as a residential community. So we've got all this amazing bird life, and I've got raccoons in the trees in my yard and deer in the neighborhood, and part of that is because of people, right? We're growing into that habitat. But I think it's so true what you say about needing to have green space, the importance of green space, and D.C. is very, very good for that. But when you get out and you get into the suburbs, it's not always that way, that these communities that are building up around the city actually don't have the green space. And part of that is that in D.C. we're blessed because we have all of this land that's National Park Service land, and it's already set aside and protected. But I think the key is when you look at urban planning, how you can have green space as part of the equation for growing the community. And I'll tell you, one of the cool things about the county, just a short anecdote, I was at a meeting the other night with the county executive, and he was talking about all of the issues facing the budget for Montgomery County, the county in Maryland where Bethesda's found, and all of the challenges, right, that you have only a certain part of the budget that's set aside as discretionary spending, but then you have all of these competing interests from schools and education to green initiatives and people who care about park space and such as part of the goal for how to spend that discretionary money. And what was really interesting for me was that the number one type of question asked of the county executive at that budget meeting was about green issues, large and small, that's really what people seem to care about most, not exclusively, but most. And some of it was drilling down to really, really local and specific issues. So, for example, one guy was saying that the street in front of his house, they were having a reclamation project to rip up the street and put in a new sidewalk. And he was really angry about that because it meant that 7 trees on his street were going to be cut down to put this sidewalk in. So you really see that there's this there's this interest at the local level in protecting whatever green space is available and protecting as much of the natural area as possible, at the same time recognizing that we've got this growing city and need to attend to those other aspects of such growth.
But then if you look at it from quality, air quality, the more trees, the better the quality of the air you breathe. And when you're a growing city and you're bringing in people and there's people reproducing and more and more people, you need more and more oxygen. That's the way I look at it.
Exactly. That's right.
So to me, every time somebody chops down a tree, I agree with the guy they shouldn't do it.
Yeah, I cry.
You could put a sidewalk in without chopping down trees.
There's ways to do things, and I think that's where, organizations like Bethesda Green, it is this, hey, how do we problem solve? How do we make things happen where if you do need a sidewalk for a quality of life for people who may need it, maybe they're in a wheelchair or, parents with a stroller, maybe there's a balance that needs to happen. How do you do it? That problem solving. And I think that's where we're at in the world, is we have to problem solve these issues.
Exactly right. And we have to problem solve these issues, I think, increasingly at a local level. And it's one of the things that attracted me to the job at Bethesda Green and the opportunity to sort of build something that, as I said before, is really able to be scaled and repeated elsewhere. We've talked about before how leaders at the global level are having to fight on things like climate change. Leaders at the national level, and unfortunately at the moment, don't really care about climate change. So the question is, what can states do, what can localities do to have a measurable impact? And it's one of the cool things about the work that we do at Bethesda Green, and that is that there's really these sort of two sides to the equation, that it's all about building a livable community, a sustainable community, a green community, but doing it in two different ways. So one part of it is looking at community projects, community work, doing, for example, a leadership academy with high school students in an environmental science program where they're doing innovative, interesting, cool things like starting a composting program in their school. How can we develop community interest in this work about, eco-protection and ecosystem protection and green space? And on the other hand, how can we encourage businesses, eco-entrepreneurs who have really good ideas but are still startups to grow their business in a sustainable, eco-friendly way and make sure that they're doing it in a way that benefits the community as well as the state, the country, really innovative ideas. And so doing these things at the same time builds this really incredible, livable community that's also focused on being a green community. And those two things are definitely compatible, notwithstanding what some people might argue to the contrary.
No, I think this is important when you especially bring the youth in. I want to talk a little bit more about the business side because we're in this definite, stage of the world where we've got to turn around and go, okay, let's create these new products. Let's create things that are green. Look at the solar revolution and standing up for things like that. And people that really, people are scared of AI and things like that, where we have to learn how to turn around and go, hey, this could be used in a better way, to create a more quality of life, a green quality of life. So having, people with great ideas, they need help. They need help to get things off the ground, like you're saying, these startups. So how do you work with, are you wanting businesses to come into Bethesda, or are you wanting to work with businesses and startups in Bethesda or that are already there?
Yeah, so it's a combination of things. The goal really is to have a vibrant eco-entrepreneur base in Bethesda, right? To make the D.C. area, the entire D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, and the Mid-Atlantic a real hub for green business and green activity. And the goal is to have it be much broader than that. And as long as folks are willing to come work with us and be in this incubator program for a while, we will receive them, help them, provide them mentor support. But the key thing is the benefits of the products that they create or the services that they provide, of course, no boundaries, right? So just, you mentioned solar a minute ago, and two of the products that we've been helping businesses cultivate are related to solar power. So one of them is a company called D-Grid, which is building solar refrigeration units. And so, this has obviously a global benefit, a global impact. Think about trying to store food or medicine in Africa, right? You're out in the bush in Kenya or Uganda or Rwanda.
Right.
What if you had a refrigeration unit? And, recalling back to my wildlife days, I remember being in Ethiopia where we had the wildlife sanctuary there, and we have these lions and cheetahs and animals we rescued, and we need to try and find ways to keep their meat fresh. And we're very limited in how we were able to do that and how much we could keep on hand. Well, even for that, having these solar refrigeration units would be amazing. But in the broader context, in a local community, in a local village in Rwanda or Uganda, if you have a solar refrigeration unit, you can keep medicines and food refrigerated for a long period of time. So, there's this global application for products like that. And then one of the companies that we're working with now, BTU Insight, does something similar, but on a smaller scale with heaters. So doing solar-powered room heaters so that you can have these small room heaters. Exactly. And when you say that, it's funny because send me one now. I was saying at a meeting the other day, I find myself getting incredibly excited not only about the innovation of the companies that we're working with and the real world aspect and applications of the products they're making, but that I want these things, right? Like, just like you said, like I'm so excited about the things that these people are coming up with, and it really excites me about what we're able to accomplish by doing all this together.
I want a solar cooler.
I know,
Nancy.
I know we want a solar cooler for our hiking so we can keep our champagne
Cool?
nice and cool by the time we get to the top of the hill.
Exactly. We've always said that. We want a solar cooler for picnics.
I knew you were going to say that. These are big refrigeration units, not personal champagne coolers.
I know. Well, come on, we just have to. We have to have some fun.
It's a really good idea.
Well, I love this, because this just proves that we are able to make changes in the world, and I think that's an amazing. I think these kinds of products are really neat. We get people sending us things like that all the time to review, and it's like, dude, this is so cool. But it takes so much to start a business, especially one that involves manufacturing, and that is that's a big road. And then you have to, sell it, and then have how do you have enough product to be able to get to the masses? So, being able to help the companies. So, do you help them with funding? How do you work with them? How do you help them?
Yeah, so it's really everything. We have this incubator project called the Be Green Hub, and it's a full program where they're learning how to do everything from establish governance rules to be compliant with industry standards and government rules for the business itself, how to expand on funding models and get access to investment capital, really every aspect of starting the business once you're past the idea stage and are really ready to implement the work and scale the project up for your business. That's where we come in, and we have these classes and take them through every aspect of getting that startup business off the ground. And as I say, I mean, it couldn't be more exciting when you think about sort of the widespread view of the different types of businesses that are involved, but also the intersection, I think, of a number of different types of business, right? So some of these businesses just have, straight up products that you and I would want to acquire, but a lot of it, there's really a cross section where you're doing something that's environmentally sound, but also has a technological component. So you've got sort of tech and ecosystem protection, finding the synergy between those two, or food or clothes. There are all these different projects that, as I say, have these real world applications and are products that we would want, but have these other components too. I was shopping with my daughter the other day, and we were at a Goodwill out in West Virginia, and she loves going to the Goodwill, finds all this great stuff, and I love it too. And for a minute, I kept thinking to myself, well, this is great, right? Because we're buying something that's old, we're not contributing to any waste. But then I realized that even companies like Goodwill, eventually, if things don't sell, those things may get discarded and could be in a landfill somewhere. And so one of the companies we're just starting to work with now, called Textiles, their goal is to take old clothes and upcycle it and turn it into things like home insulation and carpet padding, and really make sure that you're sort of closing that loop and keeping things out of landfills and really putting it to good use. So again, there are so many cool people out there with these amazing ideas, and so many times I think, well, God, why didn't I think of that? How could I not have thought of something so cool?
Yeah.
But then I just think, well, as long as we can help them get off the ground, I'm going to buy the product or invest in it or use it in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, that part of the work we do is really exciting. And there are these incubator programs around the country, and some of them are just for straight up businesses, some are for businesses that have social impact. And we're, I think, if not the premier one where it comes to environmental protection and ecosystem protection. And so that part is equally exciting, having something that's sort of an innovative program where people can come from all over the country to take part.
What about the tourism aspect of Bethesda?
Yeah, we have to talk about that.
Yeah, because that's
when it comes to hotels, restaurants, that kind of thing, or
attractions.
Attractions. Are they looking at being green too?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's one of the things that we also try and do is engage the business community, right? So it's not just about helping grow businesses from the ground up to be a part of the business community. It's talking about how we interact with the business community, all the hotels in the area, all of the restaurants, and there are some burgeoning projects that we're thinking of with some of the restaurants there that I'll have to tease for next time and talk about it when we actually get it off the ground. But thinking about the waste that's generated in a normal restaurant and how we can sort of attack some of those things. So, when you go back away from the business incubator side and think more about the community development, community interaction side, that's where you can really say, what things can we do to make Bethesda as green a community as we can, and hopefully have a spillover effect into other communities as well. And to be fair, this is happening in communities around the country. I was just reading an article the other day about New York starting a program where you can go into a coffee shop and bring your own coffee mug. So the coffee shop isn't having to either wash their own mugs if they're reusable mugs or have the waste from their mugs. Exactly. And so things like that, the minute you get it going in one community, there's this replicability that can go communities all across the country and activists on the ground who are really pushing for these kinds of sensible changes.
That's, I think, one of the most important things in this conversation and what you're doing at Bethesda Green and the whole team there, is that not only are you helping these businesses, but when people start to hear about these businesses, they think, how do I close the gap in my business? What is it? Just even the fact when we first went on the tour the first time, it forced us to become a completely paperless business. I mean, even taxes,
Exactly.
No, you can't find our records in a storage unit, tax man. No,
there are no records.
No, it snowed on them. No, but the reality is it's we had to go completely stop printing things out, stop printing notes out, even though we were recycling paper and using both sides and all of that, we went completely paperless. And then when we stopped for a while for our production break here, we didn't go back. We stayed exactly as we are. And it's really amazing to me how just those little things we can do in a company. And I think that's the important thing is even if you're not going to go off and manufacture something, what can you do in your business? I remember one restaurant in Silver City, New Mexico, and how we do our Stories of Excellence. You've been on shows with that with Bobby DePorter and the 8 Keys of Excellence program. Just saying, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Adam. A really cool community program, just saying. Anyways, we're going around getting stories of excellence from, community leaders and business owners and people. And the one lady, she had a restaurant, and she took the ownership key of excellence. And she said, I'm taking ownership of this. When people come into the restaurant, because, where they were in New Mexico, they were going through a huge drought. She says, I'm not going to hand out water. I'm going to take ownership of the situation we have. And, whenever you go in a restaurant, people, they just bring you water with a straw, and she's like, I am not going to do that. You need to tell me if you want water, and only then will I bring you water, and I refuse to give you a straw. And by the way, since it's like take a break from a straw day today, I'm just got to bring that up. Because it really helps wildlife, and we don't need plastic. And there's
the ocean.
There's glass straws, everybody. But anyhow, so that's what she did, and I think it's just simple things like that businesses can do. So do you see, Bethesda Green, doing more workshops and things like that on that level? Because on your website, it seems like you guys do like workshops all the time.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, and it's interesting that you bring that up for a number of reasons. One is that it's not just about sort of the business community, it's about the community more broadly, right? And this is something that you and I have talked about in the past, about the decisions that we make when it comes to, are you vegetarian, are you vegan, where are you eating on the spectrum, and what are the implications of your food decisions? And of course, those are very personal choices, and everybody makes a choice based on what's right for them. But everything that we do, from being completely vegan to just doing meatless Mondays, is going to make a difference. And the key is to make whatever difference you are personally comfortable with. And it's the same thing with what you were just talking about with straws. And it's interesting that you made the equation in your own mind about glasses of water, because I remember when I was in high school, I lived in Houston, and there was a drought. And I remember there was a big thing where no restaurants were allowed to glass of water when you sit down. You have to ask for one. And I was making that comparison because there's a bill in the state of Maryland in the House of Delegates that's been put in by Delegate Sarah Love, who actually represents Bethesda, and it's to prohibit the use of plastic straws in restaurants, single-use plastic straws, unless specifically requested by the customer. And you may have people with disabilities who need to drink out of a straw, and if they don't have their own or a reusable one, of course they need to have access. But they're trying to prohibit the use of straws, and it was the same exact comparison that I made in my support for that bill, that we don't have to have a glass of water if we're not going to drink it, and we certainly don't have to use plastic straws in a day and age when glasses are going through high-pressured heat washers back in the kitchen, so the glass is going to be completely clean when the next person uses it. You don't need a disposable straw to keep your lips from touching the glass. And you think about those decisions, every day going to a restaurant and saying, I'd like a club soda with lime, no straw, please. It's a very simple thing that we can do. But there are hundreds of millions of single-use plastic straws being consumed around the world every day, and most of those are not able to be recycled or discarded properly, so they become waste and they litter the shores and the coastlines of the world, and it's a real pollution problem. So, you think about what steps businesses can take, but also what steps can we as good stewards of the community take to make small decisions that will have really drastic impacts. Can I go solar? Can I, change where I eat on the food chain? Can I make sure I say no straw, please, when I order a drink in a restaurant? All of these decisions have positive impacts.
And not chopping down trees.
Yeah, leave the trees alone.
Exactly.
Even from a tourism standpoint, when people look at going to a town for any reason, the one that's pretty, that's got flowers and trees and is clean and neat is the one you want to go to. You don't want to go to something that is nothing but concrete.
No, don't pave paradise, man.
Yeah, so to me, there's just that word charm is what people usually tell us about their community. It's like, it's a mall, but it's charming. And we're like, okay, we're there. It's big and it's all concrete. I'm not interested.
Right.
I really think that keeping your community, no matter the size, keeping it green is that's like the base of your tourism business.
Right. And I wanted to touch on, because you talk about composting and recycling programs with Bethesda Green, because we haven't been there. Do you have like condos and townhouses and apartments, a lot of that kind of thing? Because, if you think about LA and some of the past shows we've done with different organizations, I know that there's been movements to get, places that have multiple housing districts to have composting, even if it's a community of homes, right? That there's like a central, composting thing. And so I was just wondering if you have that kind of situation too, or is it mostly, regular homes? I don't know how to put, we live out of a suitcase again now, so I don't know how to say that, but you know what I mean? Community composting.
Right. So the thing is, it's a total mix, right? So in Bethesda, which is not dissimilar from many communities around the country, let alone the DC region, you have a completely mixed community, right? So you have some homes with yards, the normal setting that you might imagine, and then apartment complexes, condo units, and then tons of businesses. And I think one of the things I'm starting to look at is the complexity of that kind of mixed environment and how we address that, right? So it's one thing to make sure that there are recycling bins on as many street corners throughout the city as possible, to make sure that all of the apartment complexes and condo units have some sort of recycling, and how can we expand the compost work, compost opportunities and availability to all residents. And most of that is done by private industry, sort of the compost crew, and you can get the bin and they pick it up once a week or whatever it is and give you a new bin, and you just keep churning it that way. I mean, that's what we do in DC, right? At my home, we've got veterans compost, and every week, this veteran-owned and staffed business, they come and they give us a clean bin, and we give them our compost from the week, and twice a year they give us a big bag of compost that we can use in our own growing in our own yard. So, again, that just shows that synergy between the business side of the industry and the community development and environmental protection side, where it all works together. So you have compost and recycling and community all working together to make sure that it's effective for the community. And a group like Bethesda Green comes in and tries to advance that to whatever extent we possibly can. And there are certainly other communities that are doing the same thing.
Oh, man, this is so cool. Where do you see Bethesda Green in the next 3 years?
It's a great question. And since I'm, fairly new at what we're doing, I mean, I haven't even been there 2 months yet, but already, I've done kind of my own little internal mental analysis of where we are and what we have to offer. And I'm pretty psyched about it. I mean, it's pretty exciting stuff. And so the thing now is to work with the board and the staff over the next sort of 3 or 4 months to come up with a really vibrant, exciting, dynamic strategic plan that says, over these next 3 or 5 years, here's where we want to go. Here's how we want to set the standard for community development and incubating good ideas from eco-entrepreneurs and making sure that all of this is working synergistically. So, my hope is that in a few years, this is more of I think household name is not really the right phrase, but more of a model that's being used across the country to say that we can look out for the planet, develop the needs of people, and also have businesses profit, as I mentioned before, all at the same time. And the more communities we can get to embrace that model, the better off the country will be. So I think for the most part, that's where my focus is, seeing how we can make sure that this is a model that's replicable across the country.
I love that. And I knew you were going to say that. I knew it. I was like, I see where this is going, But that's important, and I think that's, through the years we've always talked about the importance of go to your local government, your municipality. If you don't like something, we've always talked about the importance of that. And even if we were like saving lions, it was like you still need to contact your representative so that they can't fly in here with animal parts, stuff like that. So we've done. It all comes back. It's all connected and all that same thing. It is about those choices, and I love that this is, getting out there for people to hear about, more and more. Can you give us a little background of how Bethesda Green became this this is a cool organization.
It really is, and it started as a very local effort by people in Bethesda. One of the founders is Seth Goldman, who's the founder of the Honest Tea Company, and with a county councilman, they put together this organization to really look at environmental development in the community, working on those local issues, those community issues of green space and recycling, and making sure that those issues were being attended to, because they lived in the community and represented the community, if you will. And over the years, it's grown into this, more robust, widespread operation that looks at the business incubation side as well as the community development side, and so it's had this sort of good 10-year development run of increasing its impact all the way through, and making sure that on what kind of community Bethesda is going to be, and again how to make that a model for other communities to follow. So it's got a pretty good history in terms of some local roots from some impactful people. And then the question is, where do we take it from here? And time will tell.
And I also, I think it is. It's exciting because
a lot of times, the businesses are left out, and it's like, okay, we're going to be an organization that's community driven, and we're looking at being environmentally sound. Mm-hmm. And then business gets left out and almost looked at as if they're the bad guys. Mm-hmm. And yet that's what makes it so everybody can live in the community they wish to live in and raise their children and go to school and have education and everything that we need as humans. Mm-hmm. And so, it's a major factor. And I don't think today the business people are, I think they want solutions. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're ignoring. If somebody shows them a solution that works for them, that will make it better for the planet, I think most of them do it.
Mm-hmm. I think so too, and also helping each other. As businesses. I mean, we're entrepreneurs, and you do have to be profitable. It doesn't mean you're some,
Yeah.
I'm not the one not paying my taxes and sitting at the top. I'm not doing that. So there's this network. Over the last, I'd say 10 years too, is really shifted in what's going on in small business and entrepreneurship. I remember over 20 years ago when we started the magazine, small businesses represented America. Half of American business and the economy came from small businesses and entrepreneurs. Then this shift happened, and suddenly, they got eaten up by the big guys. Mm-hmm. And now we have a new wave, I think, of entrepreneurs and working differently because of the Internet and because of AI and innovation, all of these new things. So at the same time, you have to band together. I know we work with different people across the board. It doesn't mean you have to have, 1,000 employees. It might be that we're all small business people and we work together and we hire each other for different things. So there's so many different ways to work now, but I think it's important when you have an organization like Bethesda Green that it's almost like this way of people connecting and networking and working together and as a business community in doing the right thing, and that it is about community being there. And that one of the best ways to network as a business person is to get out there in your community and volunteer and meet people of like mind. And, so you want to do business in your community, get out there and do something good. So I just see this as a three-pronged, like the win-win-win. I always think we have to have 3 wins instead of 2. Just saying.
That's right. Well,
yeah.
and I'll just say this, to summarize kind of what you said, in agreement with you, of course, that I think we've been sold this concept that community development and environmental protection is in tension with corporate development and business. Right, that's the common model, is that, well, you can't protect the environment because people are going to lose jobs and businesses are going to go bankrupt and all that. And I think right now we're at this pivotal point in our history where it's the exact opposite, and we're starting to realize that the best thing we can do for job creation, for community development, for protection of people is make sure that they have access to good green jobs that are going to take us into the future. And I mean, all you need to do is look at the advancements that have happened in the past 5 or 10 years in terms of hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles and solar power and wind power to know that we're moving in the right direction. And one of the things that I think Bethesda Green symbolizes, set aside the actual work we're doing on the ground every day, but what we symbolize is the concept that we can move together in synergy, and that these concepts of environmental protection and business development are actually compatible and mutually beneficial rather than at odds or in tension with one another. And I think as soon as we embrace that sort of more widely, the better off we'll be, and we'll see that we really can do these things simultaneously to everyone's benefit, just as you say.
I think it's cool because, when we've been in so many towns where, let's just say we're known as a mining town. You hear that, and people kind of like that history. And then one day the mine closes and there's a whole town out of their homes, out of business, out of town, out of money, and then it gets to be a ghost town, and then other things kind of try to spring up. It is really, really important for any community to have a mix of different job jobs available, a different mix of companies, not one big company. One big company is a disaster.
That's exactly
They're really a disaster, and we've seen it over and over again. That's like when we on the tourism front. That's why we like tourism so much. Is because
sustainable, responsible tourism.
Yes, there's boutique hotels. It's not always going to be a chain hotel. You know, and there's boutique restaurants. Doesn't always have to be a chain restaurant.
Character.
There's, you know, and retail shops. You know, so many different little mixes of retail shops. Those things provide a whole lot of jobs. You know, and so as youth grow up into a town that has good tourism and a good mix of businesses, they don't have this. I have to go halfway around the world to find a different job. There's jobs right there in the community.
And if you go to Bethesda Green, apparently when we're traveling around, Nancy, we can go rent their office space. See, check this out. Listen, I look at that stuff now. That's my thing. I'm like, where's internet? Do you have internet? Is it good?
Well, yeah, strong wireless and coffee and co-working space and all the honest tea you can drink out of the fridge. So you just let me know when you're ready.
I'm always good for some honest tea. I love tea. I love it. So very exciting. Adam, I can see what this, you know, the new conversations, you know, I want to do a green entrepreneur show. I do.
Absolutely.
I think we need to, let's do that. I've got some ideas buzzing in my head. You know, it's Friday, and that's what happens when it snows and you come on our show.
Yeah.
Very
sounds
exciting.
Great. And we should do maybe a panel discussion where I can get some of our eco-entrepreneurs on, and they can actually tell you firsthand the exciting stuff they're doing and how they're going about it and where the innovative ideas came from. So, yeah, there's a lot we can do with this space, and I think it's the way of the future.
Cool. And we will get to D.C. You know, how far are you from Kentucky? Because we're doing the Bourbon Trail, and we have to make sure that their water's good. When apparently they got good water.
We're going to just make sure the bourbon's good.
And you don't need a straw for bourbon, or maybe we do. I don't know. But how far are you from there, do you think? You can't be that far of a drive.
Oh, for you folks, not that far at all.
I know. We'll just hop over. Okay, you got honesty, and you got space. We'll do a radio show from there. But yeah, let's do that. Everyone, keep in touch with us here at BigBlendRadio.com. Also, Adam is featured in our expert department on NationalParkTraveling.com and also BlendRadioandTV.com. And I love that we're continuing this conversation. I know Nancy and I are excited about this, and it definitely goes in with our community, putting the eye back into community series that Nancy writes, and I think that's important because you got to get into your community. You can't close your eyes to your community.
Nope, got to be part of it.
And you definitely can't complain if you don't do anything.
That's right.
See?
Well, you can complain, but if you want, but who's going to listen?
No, we don't like that. We want to thank Supercamp, the world leader in summer academic achievement programs, for sponsoring today's show. Check them out at supercamp.com. And we will be back on Sunday with a segment also that talks about sustainability with Sherman Library and Gardens in Southern California. Very good conversation there.
Pretty there.
So that's our Sunday show. Again, everyone, you can keep up with us at BigBlendRadio.com. And follow us at our LoveYourParksTour.com. All our information is there on the tour. And we'll see you when we get there. And, of course, keep up with Bethesda Green. Again, their website is BethesdaGreen.org. They're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. And we've got a cool song for you, Adam, today's song. This is about being a superhero, you know, not being your own superhero. It's called Captain America. I don't know if you've been on a show with Nikki Chris before. I feel like you have. She's an amazing singer-songwriter based out of North Carolina, and her new album is out. It's called Heartbeat, and this is the deluxe version of Captain America, and it's off of the album, so you can keep up with her at NikkiChris.com, and that's K-R-I-S, and it's about being a superhero and to spread love, not hate. So there we go. So let's be superheroes for our community. Thanks so much, Adam.
Thank you. We'll talk again soon.
Take care. Have a good weekend and stay warm.
Yeah.
Get one of those heaters.
You too.
Get a heater.
Here it is, everyone. Captain America. Take care, and we'll see you on Sunday.
I turn quickly into a man. Wants to do what's right the best that he can.